We had a big job, and we knew it. It was 1993, and the executive director of AAMFT had resigned in January, just as my first term as president began. We had to advertise the position, sort through applications, and choose some to interview in person. We were the search committee. Mary Ann Armour, chair, Tony Jurich, Marcia Laswell, George Meyer, and me. With the help of a great consultant, we developed our plans for the interviews. We interviewed 6 applicants, and Mike Bowers was our last one on a Friday afternoon, and we were tired. Now, we all thought we knew Mike pretty well. He had been on staff for 7 years, already working with divisions, and he had been in board meetings to talk to us about what was happening in divisions. He had socialized with us, been at conferences with us. But when Michael began to describe his ideas about what AAMFT could be, what our members needed, what our divisions needed, what he thought professional associations were about, we were amazed. This man had a vision we had not heard from any other candidate. He talked about Russian dolls as metaphors for how various functions could be nested within others. He talked about staff teamwork. He talked about cross-training employees so that people could do more than one job. And he talked about how, with our limited resources, we had to make $1 do the work of 3. He talked about policy and advocacy, and we knew he wasn't talking about board members offering advice on how to redecorate the office, which some of us had witnessed. Who was this person? We had interviewed 5 other people, all of whom were competent, but Michael brought something extra to the interview. Not only was he trained as a marriage and family therapist, he truly believed the profession made a difference. He believed in us, who we are in the world, and what we do. And most importantly, he understood that the role of the ED is to make hard decisions and take the heat. Therefore, on the recommendation of the search committee, the board of directors hired him. We had big plans for the future, of course. We would strengthen the divisions, we would have more and better training opportunities, we would show the world just how valuable MFTs are. Then in July of 1993, just 3.5 months after he was hired, Mike called me. Annabeth, we've got a problem. Attendance at the meeting in Anaheim, and this was back in the day when AAMFT was heavily dependent on the revenue from the annual conference to fund our programs and activities, was not likely to generate anywhere near the projected return. We needed to act quickly to conserve our resources, so Michael and I looked for ways to cut spending immediately. He ended up laying off 10 staff members, and I ended up canceling committee meetings and obligations that required travel, curtailing some initiatives, eliminating my own and the president-elect's stipend for the rest of that year. Michael and I vowed we never wanted to be in that spot again. So from then on, we both became highly conservative on estimating revenues and very vigilant about calculating and watching expenditures, which did not endear us to some of our colleagues in some divisions. I could tell you many stories about Michael's dedication to our profession and our association, but my time is too short, and some stories are better left untold. So in tribute to his long and distinguished leadership and service as Executive Director of AAMFT, I'll just mention a few reasons we have to be grateful that he wanted to be our ED back in 1993. If you live in a state or province where MFTs are licensed, more than likely you have Michael and his staff, along with divisional leaders, to thank. Only 11 states were licensed when he was hired as a staff member in 1996, and no provinces had governmental recognition. Today, all 50 states are licensed, and several provinces have or are close to governmental recognition in Canada. If you live in a division that has received legislative grants or other financial aid from AAMFT, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you work in a public school setting, on a Native American reservation, or in the Veterans Administration, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you are proud that marriage and family therapy is listed as one of the core mental health professions and mentioned by name in federal legislation, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you are making a living working as an MFT, including payment by third parties, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you receive referrals from Therapist Locator, the very first online referral service for a mental health profession, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you have received or know of a recipient of a fellowship awarded to an MFT graduate student by SAMHSA, especially a minority student, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you're proud of the fact that AMFT is now the owner of a building in Old Town, Alexandria, which has no mortgage, paid off 7 years early, by the way, due to his careful fiscal management of our resources, you have Michael to thank. If you've presented or attended one of the research or training conferences sponsored by AAMFT, you have Michael and his staff to thank. If you believe that our expanded presence in the United States and Canada helps to make life better for families and relationships of all kinds, you have Michael to thank for keeping that vision, that dream alive, because he has either worked directly himself to make these things possible, or he has supervised, advised, coached, mentored, and inspired others in their work to do so. Now, of course, Mike didn't make anything happen all by himself. Boards of directors, hardworking divisional leaders, individual members who responded to calls for help on various projects and used personal resources to accomplish goals, as well as loyal and skilled fellow staff members, were also necessary to achieve these results. But Michael's creative leadership, his tireless efforts, and his ability to conceive of strategies for doing more with less in the service of members so that we can do good in the world have been the core of Michael's leadership for a very long time. Thank you is completely inadequate here, but I will close with thank you, Michael, for your steadfast commitment to the profession, your innovations and leadership, your personal dedication to AAMFT being one of the best professional associations anywhere. Each and every one of us owes you big time. Please join me in thanking Michael.
Please welcome Michael Bowers, Executive Director of the AAMFT.
Cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard out on plan to shave, and it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say,